The Senate will come to order. Senator Marble, would you please come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Madam President Pro Tem. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see a nice shiny day, and it's great to be able to salute and pledge allegiance to the greatest flag ever. Join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Majors, would you please take the roll?
Aguilar. Here. Balmer. Baumgardner. Brophy. Cadman. Crowder. Grantham. Guzman. Harvey. Heath. Herpin. Hill.
Excused.
Hodge. John. Johnston. Jones. Kafalis. Kerr. Kerr.
Absent.
King. Lambert. Lundberg. Marble. Newell. Nicholson. Renfro. Rivera. Roberts. Scheffel. Schwartz. Stedman. Tocktrop. Todd. Ulibarri. Zenzinger. Kerr. Madam President.
Here. With 35 present, or 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, the Senate has a quorum. Motion to adopt the journal. Senator Ulibarri. Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Friday, April 11th be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Senate Services.
April 14, 2014, correctly printed, Senate Bills 191 and 192, correctly engrossed, Senate Bills 8, 11, 13, 15, 46, 50, 64, and 171, Senate Joint Resolution 26, correctly revised, House Bill 1130.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Good morning, all, and Madam President, I would move we proceed out of order to consider Joint Resolution 27.
That is a proper motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will proceed out of order to consider Senate Joint Resolution 26. 7. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 27?
Senate Joint Resolution 27 by Senators King and Newell and Representatives Exum and Scott concerning declaring the week of May 11th through 17th, 2014 as Police Week, and in connection therewith declaring May 15th, 2014 as Peace Officers Memorial Day.
Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. We move Senate Joint Resolution 14-027 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Majors, would you please read Senate Joint Resolution 27 at length?
Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agencies within the state of Colorado play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of the state of Colorado. And whereas it is important that all citizens of Colorado know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police officers. And whereas it is important that police officers throughout Colorado recognize their duty to serve the people of this state by safeguarding life and property, protecting citizens against violence, disorder, and deception, and protecting the weak against oppression and intimidation. And whereas the law enforcement agencies within the state of Colorado have grown to be modern and progressive agencies that unceasingly provide a vital public service. And whereas the following 268 peace officers made the ultimate sacrifice while serving the state of Colorado. In 1869, Robert A. Clark, Marshal of Black Hawk. In 1872, Juan C. Tafoya of the Los Animas County SO. In 1873, Ora M. Nason of Bent County SO. In 1875, Zach Allen of the Rio Grande County SO. In 1876, Charles Cast of the City of Los Animas and Charles Faber of the Bent County SO. In 1879, Alvin Fippany of Pueblo PD. In 1880, John Carville and Lauriston Stewart of the Leadville PD and Michael O'Neill of the Kokomo PD. In 1881, Clayt Augsbury of the Silverton PD. In 1882, Edward N. Campbell of the Hinsdale County SO and George L. Smith, Marshal of Rico. In 1883, James Bathurst and Baxter Stingley of the Salida PD. In 1884, Casper Zweifel, Marshal of Central Pueblo. In 1888, Bill Thompson of the Los Animas County SO. In 1889, John C. Phillips of the Denver PD. In 1890, Charles F. Wanless of Denver PD. In 1891, Charles A. Hawley of the Denver PD. In 1894, A.E. Cook, Marshal of Como, and John Myers of the Gunnison County SO. In 1895, Charles Emerson of the Alamosa PD, Alphys J. Moore of the Denver PD, William Shea, Marshal of Victor, and John Solomon of the Trinidad PD. In 1896, Wendell P. Smith of the Denver PD, Richard B. Williams of the Gilpin County SO, William Green and William Kelly of the Los Animas County SO, and Benjamin Bish of the Colorado Springs PD. In 1897, Joseph Simmons of the Alamosa PD. In 1898, Ernest Conrad and Sumner Whitney of the Summit County SO. In 1899, Edward Farr of Huerfano County SO, Thomas C. Clifford and William E. Griffith of the Denver PD. In 1900, Stuart K. Harvey of the Denver PD. In 1901, E.T. Clark of the Cripple Creek PD. In 1903, Silas Martz and Elwin Slater of the Pueblo PD. In 1904, W.E. Hammond of the Gunnison County SO. In 1905, Dr. Frank Doolin and William Bohanna of the Denver PD and Francisco Garcia of the Los Animas County SO. In 1906, William J. Thompson of the La Plata County SO, John Spellman of the Denver PD, William Shellman of the Pueblo PD, Edward Inez of the Mesa County SO, and J. Horace Frisbee, Marshal of Lamar. In 1907, Joseph Allen of the Fort Collins PD and Joseph A. Walker of the United States Secret Service. In 1908, James Delmer Ellis of the Brighton PD, Antonio T. Shelby of Los Animas County SO, William H. Beck of the Denver PD, Albert Smith of the Cripple Creek PD, and William P. Stevens of the Denver PD. In 1909, Alex Brighton of the Trinidad PD and Frederick Barner and John Dunleavy of the Pueblo PD. In 1910, Samuel C. Carpenter of the Denver PD and John M. Renix of Marshal of Newcastle. In 1911, Jesse B. Craig Sr. and Jacob A. Kipper of the Rocky Ford PD and Charles E. Brockman of the Fort Collins PD. In 1912, William McPherson of the Denver PD. In 1915, Frank Peake of the Loveland PD and Victor Helberg of the Louisville PD. In 1916, William H. Cabler of the Denver PD and Charles P. Iser, Marshal of Fort Morgan. In 1918, John Rowan of the Colorado Springs PD, Luther McMahill of the Denver PD, and William Wesley Green of the Pueblo County SO. In 1919, Emerson L. McKinnon and George C. Klein of the Denver PD and Jeff Evans of the Pueblo PD. In 1920, James E. Baggio and Royo Downing of the Denver PD, L.P. Bass of the Boulder PD, William Schechter of the Boulder County SO, Harvey Calvin Neese of the Cripple Creek PD, and Addison O. Hinsdale Jr. of the Pueblo PD. In 1921, William O. Steen, Clarence E. Zeitz, Arthur J. Pinkerton and Forrest Ross of the Denver PD, John Henry Lindemood of the Fountain PD, and Clyde McDonald of the Monte Vista PD. In 1922, Blaine J. Wilson of Logan County SO, Eddie Bell of the Colorado Rangers, and Richie Rose of the Denver PD. In 1923, Leonard Higgins of the Adams County SO, and Elmer E. Cobb of the Boulder PD. In 1924, Jack Rose of the Walsenburg PD, Henry E. Robart of State Prohibition, and Willis A. Davis of the Delta County PD. In 1925, James A. Shannon of the Denver PD, and Clyde L. Taylor of the United States Treasury. 1927, Elmer I. Rich of the Denver PD, and Clem Eller of the Oak Creek PD. In 1928, Charles Pebley of the Delta PD, and Harry R. Oley and Robert K. Evans of the Denver PD. In 1929, Charles Edward Gibbs of the Routt County SO, and Clarence W. Alston of the Denver PD. In 1951, Wesley Rosette of the Colorado State Patrol. Whereas it is fitting and appropriate for the citizens of Colorado to join together in commemorating peace officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their community, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, hereby proclaim the week commencing May 11th, 2014 as Police Week in Colorado in recognition of peace officers' efforts in safeguarding the citizens of Colorado, and call upon all citizens of the state and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe Police Week. And that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, hereby proclaim the day of May 15th, 2014 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in recognition of those officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the supreme sacrifice or who have been disabled in the line of duty, and call upon the citizens of Colorado to recognize and participate in the observance of this worthy occasion. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to John Hickenlooper, Governor of Colorado, Donnie Archuleta, President of the Colorado Chapter of Concerns of Police Survivors, Inc., Diane Bernhardt, Executive Director of Concerns of Police Survivors, Inc., Barry Bratt, Chairman of the Colorado Law Enforcement Memorial, Frank Gale, President of the Fraternal Order of Police, Colorado State Lodge, Officer Mike Morehouse of the Thornton Police Department, James H. Davis, Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Public Safety, Colonel Scott Hernandez, Chief of the Colorado State Patrol, Karen M. Renshaw, Executive Director of the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police, Jim Casillas, President of the County Sheriffs of Colorado, Inc., and Ronald C. Sloan, Director of the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
Senator No. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, members, for having a few moments just of acknowledgement for those who are so selflessly serving and who have selflessly sacrificed sometimes their own lives. As many of you know, my former husband was at a time a Denver police officer and a CID agent in the Army. And when I met him, he was not. He was in finance, and I didn't really know that side of him until we got into a relationship. We were married and realized that I could never go anywhere and have his back to the door of any restaurant. We always had to sit juxtaposed so that he could see the ingress and egress of the room. Those of you who know what I mean, they are always, even when they are off duty, having their eye out for us. And I know that there are many who grow up wanting to be in selfless service and wanting to be in service with law enforcement. I also recognize that there are many people who don't like to see law enforcement, that they pray to God they're not caught by law enforcement. But what I think is interesting is that they don't want to see them until they do, until they need them. But the good news is that they are always there, day in, day out, hour by hour, And we have had some, even in our own area, who have fallen for unnecessary reasons, like in my own district officer, Bittner, who tragically lost his life just on a traffic stop. So I wanted to join Senator King in honoring those who do have a life of service, and honor those of you who came to join us today. Being a spouse of someone in that service too is also day in and day out, not knowing from day to day, hour to hour, when you're going to get that call or when you're not going to see them come home. It can be very not only stressful on a short term, but on a lifelong basis, not knowing when your spouse is going to be coming home or not. So I wanted to say thank you to not only those of you who are in service currently, but those who have in the past, especially Senator King, and I wanted to also acknowledge all of those spouses and family members who sat there at home day after day, or still do night after night, waiting, but knowing that that is their role in the service to the community. So thank you for joining us.
Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. President Carroll, it has been an honor and a privilege to present this tribute for the last 4 years in the Senate. The monument by Sergeant George Hahn, LAPD. I never dreamed it would be me, my name for all eternity, recorded here in this hallowed place. Alas, my name, no more my face. In the line of duty, I hear them say, my family now the price will pay. My folded flag stained with their tears, we only had those few short years. The badge no longer on my chest, I sleep now in eternal rest. My sword I pass to those behind, and pray they keep this thought in mind. I never dreamed it would be me. And with heavy heart and bended knee, I ask for all here from the past. Dear God, let my name be the last. I have no doubt that is their prayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Herpin.
Thank you, Madam President. As a 29-year volunteer of the Colorado Springs Police Department and a member of the Colorado Springs City Council, I've attended too many officer funerals. No greater love than this has a man who will lay down his life for his friends. Our first responders every morning put on the gun and the badge and go out to protect us, the citizens. It's my prayer that they return home safe. Thank you for the duty that you do for us.
Senator King.
Thank you, President Carroll. I ask for a roll call vote and ask that the chimes be rang in the honor of those fallen men and women of our law enforcement.
We will. Looks like a couple other senators may wish to speak on the resolution before we vote. Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Madam President. I was one of the lucky ones that was able to serve the citizenry down in Pueblo for 34 years, and I say that honestly, very lucky to have had that as a career and to be able to look back on those times down in Pueblo. And I can tell you that it was truly an honor, and And the officers that I served with during those 34 years, I believe across the board, they felt the same way. It was an honor to serve the citizens of the city and serve and protect. And as the sponsor indicated, old habits die hard. And even now, I do sit facing the door. We just can't get away from it. And the other thing is, I count myself lucky because I was able to retire without disability or significant injury. And I think it's first and foremost on my mind. I see law enforcement officers out there on the street, and I'm very concerned for their safety. And when I see the guys there in the department, when I go down to Pueblo and run into them, talk with them a bit, ask them how things are going, of course, and so on, and I always tell them, and the officer I see out there, the last thing I tell them, it's meant for my heart, be safe. Be safe. Thank you.
Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I thank the senators for their sponsorship of this, and it's always a solemn occasion as we look through resolution like this and see the names of those that have put themselves in harm's way for us. No doubt throughout our histories, this goes back a long ways in our state. A lot of names. Something really rang out though when we got into something more recent here in 2001. It was a reminder of an occurrence that happened in Canyon City in Fremont County when Deputy Jason Swartz was killed in the line of duty, and it's a stark reminder to how it affects us in our communities when one of our heroes puts himself on the line and gives his life. It's one of those nights that you just don't forget. Small communities out in rural Colorado, everybody knows everybody. And it's one of those tough things where you just don't know who it is and what's going on, and then you find out who it is, and it's the tragedy is only compounded by the fact that you know these folks that have sacrificed their all and their families. It was also in September of 2001 when it happened. We were only 2 weeks removed from the September 11th tragedy, and then we had that happen. So emotions were certainly still raw that day, and I thank all of our peace officers, our sheriff's officers, our police officers for all that they do. And hopefully, folks, not to diminish anything that we have in here, but there are other peace officers that give their lives that aren't on the list necessarily, and just to raise our awareness of that, including those on the list here, but folks like Eric Otteby and Mary Ricard and even Tom Clements, those that in DOC have given their lives and continually every day put themselves also on the line for us. Just like I said, not to diminish what is happening here in this resolution, because it is obviously very necessary for us to remember these names, but also to remember those that put on a little bit different uniform every day down in Canyon City and several other cities across this state. I thank them and all of our law enforcement for their service. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, President Carroll. I want to welcome our law enforcement folks here today. We are always extremely honored to participate in this. It's certainly an event that we wish we didn't have to do, but we should always do. I was thinking about the one or two times in my life, well, recently even, being pulled over. I mean, anybody been there? Yeah, right. I know you have. I mean, think of that. I mean, just what goes through your heart and your stomach when you see the red lights and you're like, oh no. Of course, for me, it's like, okay, do I have my registration? Where is the insurance card, which is actually what I went through in January when I was in my wife's car. I'd like to thank the Douglas County Sheriff's Office for cutting me some slack that day. They still gave me a ticket, but it could have been worse. But it was referred up here that somebody was killed in a routine, just on a traffic stop, but we know there's no routine traffic stop. And there's certainly, if that's how we feel, think about them and think about the times that, frankly, I have learned to, when you're in that situation, grip the wheel and just wait. Because they're not walking up with a ticket pad, they're walking up ready to draw. And I don't blame them. And I don't mean just about me. Because there is no such thing as a routine traffic stop. I had a routine traffic stop on myself when I was leaving the Capitol a few years ago. Actually, it was 2006, February 22nd. It was a Wednesday. It was fairly late. I was, most of you know I stay in Littleton, and I was about halfway home. I was heading out Santa Fe, and got pulled over. Put my hands on the wheel. The officer came up and wanted some information, didn't recognize my plate. So they're not a free pass, folks. I got pulled over because I had legislative plates on. So he didn't recognize the plate, and my truck matched the identification that had just been called in over a stolen vehicle. And I said, hey, glad you're doing your job. God bless you. I hope you're safe. I lost a friend on the force today. And that was the day that Jared Jensen had been killed in Colorado Springs. As many of you know, as I've carried this resolution when I was in the House and shared my relationship with him, and his wife Natalie participated in this event in the legislature several years. But I just thought about routine. There's no such thing, and there can't be. And we appreciate the fact that you're out there doing what you do. My colleague from El Paso County mentioned greater love has no man than someone that would give their life for a friend, but you strap on every day a weapon to save the lives of strangers. I think we just found out what that greater love looks like. Let me just share what I don't think I know I've shown this coin before, but I don't think I've shared the inscription on Jared Scott Jensen's unit coin. Virtue is bold and goodness never fearful. In valor there is hope. And probably the most poignant part of these coins is the part that says, end of watch, February 22nd, 2006. God bless all of them who ended their watch on duty protecting us.
Thank you. The question is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 27. A roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Majors, would you please poll the senators?
Aguilar. Aguilar, aye. Balmer. Balmer, aye. Baumgartner. Baumgartner, aye. Brophy. Brophy, aye. Cadman. Cadman, aye. Crowder. Crowder, aye. Grantham. Grantham, I. Guzman. Guzman, I. Harvey. Harvey, I. Heath. Heath, I. Herpin. Herpin, I. Hill excused. Hodge. Hodge, I. John. John, I. Johnston. Johnston, I. Jones. Jones, I. Kefalis. Kefalis, I. Kerr. Kerr, I. King. King, I. Lambert. Lambert, I. Lundberg. Lundberg, I. Marble. Marble, I. Newell. Newell, I. Nicholson. Nicholson, I. Renfro. Renfro, I. Rivera. Rivera, I. Roberts. Roberts, I. Scheffel. Scheffel, I. Schwartz. Schwartz, I. Stedman. Stedman, I. Talktrop. Talktrop, I. Todd. Todd, I. Ulibarri. Ulibarri, I. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, I. Madam President.
Aye.
Madam President, I.
With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Joint Resolution 27 is adopted. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Any objection? Seeing none, the present roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Resolution 27. The Senate will stand in a brief recess to greet our guests. Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. There has been a request to remove Senate Bills 46 and 8 from today's third reading of bills consent calendar, placed at the end of today's third reading of bills calendar.
Senate Bills 46 and 8 will be removed from today's third reading consent calendar and placed at the end. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you. Before we move on that motion, I move a call of the Senate.
A call of the Senate has been moved, and with your fabulous hands up, sustained. Will the sergeants please close the doors, allow no senators to leave, return those who are absent from the chambers, and Mr. Majors, would you please call the roll?
Aguilar. Balmer. Baumgartner. Brophy. Cadman. Crowder. Grantham. Guzman. Harvey. Harvey.
Ted. Here.
Heath. Herpin. Hill excused. Hodge. John. Johnston. Jones. Kafalis. Kerr. King. Lambert. Lundberg. Marble. Newell. Nicholson. Renfro. Rivera. Roberts. Sheffel. Schwartz. Stedman. Tocktrop. Todd. Ulibarri. Zenzinger. Madam President.
Here. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the call be raised.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The call will be raised. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles to the bills remaining on third reading consent calendar?
Senate Bill 13 by Senator King and Representative Pedersen concerning resources received by a recipient of an old age pension and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations. House Bill 1130 by Representative McCann and Senator Ulibarri concerning the disposition of monies charged to borrowers for costs to be paid in connection with foreclosure.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of all the bills on third reading of bills consent calendar, which include Senate Bill 13 and House Bill 1130.
Any discussion on those bills? Question for the body is the adoption of the bills on third reading consent calendar. Are there any no votes on either? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 13 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Kerr. Senator Aguilar. Senator Tocktrop. Senator Ulibarri. Senators Roberts. Newell. Nicholson. Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Hodge. Senators Todd. Kafalis. John, Zenzinger, Stedman, Schwartz, Rivera, with 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1130 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Aguilar, Kerr, Newell, Hodge, Zenzinger, Todd, Nicholson, Schwartz, Kafalis. Please add the President. Mr. Majority Leader. Message from the House.
April 14, 2014, Madam President, the House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1017.
Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Joint Resolution 1017?
House Joint Resolution 1017 by Representative Dorr and Senator Crowder concerning the recognition of Amachi's 20th anniversary of the National Register of Historic Places.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we proceed out of order to hear House Joint Resolution 17.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We'll proceed out of order for purposes of considering House Joint Resolution 1017. Senator Crowder.
I think they're coming in. Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate or House Joint Resolution 1017.
Do you wish it to be read at length? Would you like it read at length, Senator Crowder?
What's that? Would you like it read at length? Yes, I would ask to be read at length, Mr. Majors.
Thank you. Mr. Majors, would you please read House Joint Resolution 1017 at length?
Whereas Amachi, also known as the Granada Relocation Center, is located in Prowers County, Colorado, near the town of Granada, Colorado, and served as a World War II era prison camp for Japanese and Japanese American citizens between October 1942 and October 1945. And whereas President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066 authorizing military commanders to exclude any or all persons from designated military zones. And whereas President Roosevelt created the War Relocation Authority, WRA, to establish and supervise the Granada Relocation Center, along with 9 other Japanese prison camps. And whereas the creation of the prison camps represented an official effort to quell unfounded public fears that Japanese nationals and Japanese American citizens living on the west coast of the United States mainland served as spies and saboteurs for the Japanese Empire. And whereas this anti-Japanese sentiment was initiated by a farmer association in Northern California just after the start of World War II, as a way to acquire the farms owned and operated by Japanese Americans, and quickly many other businesses in competition with the Japanese in California joined in spreading these false rumors in order to remove Japanese competition. And whereas Colorado Governor Ralph L. Carr stood alone among Western political leaders by taking a principled stand against race, hatred, and the unconstitutional incarceration of American citizens without due process at the expense of his political career. And whereas the United States government assembled the 10,000-acre Amachi site through condemnation of 13 private agricultural holdings and 1 voluntary sale. And whereas on August 27, 1942, the first 212 Japanese Americans to arrive in Amachi were from the Merced Assembly Center, where they had been incarcerated for over 3 months to help complete the building of their own prison, and in the following days they were joined by 4,220 others from the same center. And whereas, with only a portion of Amachi actually finished, these initial prisoners, selected for their skills as artisans, stenographers, clerks, cooks, and other specialists, aided WRA officials in preparing the center as a self-sustaining facility. And whereas in mid-September 1942, trainloads of persons began to arrive from the Santa Anita Assembly Center, and by the end of October 1942, Amache had reached its peak population of 7,566, two-thirds of whom possessed American citizenship, making it the 10th largest city in Colorado at the time. And whereas between October 1942 and October 1945, more than 10,000 men, women, and children of Japanese descent passed through Amache. And whereas prisoners at Amache organized and operated a camp council, a newspaper, hospital, store, Buddhist and Christian churches, and a silkscreen shop that produced 250,000 posters for the United States Navy. And whereas these incarcerated farmers and families produced millions of pounds of wheat and vegetables, as well as raised livestock, poultry, and eggs to support the war effort. And whereas 2 Amacheans were recruited to work in Denver between February 1943 and 1945 for the British political warfare mission, which hired 4 Japanese Americans to do translation work and radio broadcasting in wartime Japan. The BPWM worked in tandem with the Office of War Information in a joint Anglo-American partnership doing radio propaganda. And whereas 953 Japanese American men and women residing in Amache served honorably in the United States Armed Forces, of which 105 were wounded and 31 died in action during the Second World War. And whereas these Amache prisoners fought in Italy, France, and Germany with the famed 100th Battalion and 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and also served with the Military Intelligence Service in the Pacific. And over 40 adults left Amache to work as instructors in the U.S. Navy Japanese Language School at the University of Colorado in Boulder, teaching Japanese to Navy officers who would be serving in the Pacific and later in Japan. And whereas Private First Class Kiyoshi K. Muranaga, an Amache resident, posthumously received the Medal of Honor for extraordinary heroism in action on June 26, 1944, near Suevarito, Italy. And whereas an additional 35 to 40 qualified Japanese Americans refused to report to their draft boards as an act of civil disobedience to protest the injustice of incarceration. And whereas some residents of the neighboring towns of Granada and Lamar, Colorado, and the Broward County and other nearby counties overcame anti-Japanese prejudice to provide goods, services, employment, and a much-needed sense of community to the prisoners of Amache. And whereas the WRA dismantled the Amache site following its October 15, 1945 closure, and whereas the last remaining prisoners constructed a stone memorial to commemorate the 114 prisoners who died at Amache, and whereas former prisoners resettled in California, Denver, the Arkansas River Valley, and states east of Colorado, and whereas the town of Granada purchased the site from the federal government, and whereas the Denver Central Optimist Club, today known as the Friends of Amache, and whose membership includes former prisoners and their families, began making annual pilgrimages to the site's cemetery and war memorial in 1980. And whereas the Japanese American Association of Colorado has been a major donor to the Amache Pilgrimage and the Amache Club for decades, providing and presenting scholarships to deserving high school seniors for their support of the preservation of Amache and the museum. And whereas the Amache Historical Society, based in Los Angeles, where many former Amacheans resettled, is comprised of former prisoners who organize Amache reunions at the site and at locations across the West and contribute to the preservation, restoration, and memorabilia of Amache. And whereas in 1992, Granada High School students under the leadership of social studies teacher John Hopper organized the Amache Preservation Society in Granada, Colorado, in order to study and understand the tragedy of the unlawful uprooting and incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. Since the Society's inception, Mr. Hopper and his students have not only restored and maintained the Amache Cemetery and created and continue to operate a museum that preserves the objects, place, and memories of the prison camp, but Mr. Hopper travels throughout the state to teach Coloradans about Japanese forced incarceration. And whereas the Amache Relocation Center was deemed historically significant in the areas of military history, legal history, and ethnic history, under the United States Secretary of the Interior standards for listing on the National Register of Historic Places in 1994, and was subsequently designated a National Historic Landmark in 2006. And whereas in 1994, the General Assembly passed a Senate joint resolution concerning the creation of a memorial on the state capitol grounds honoring Governor Ralph Carr and the Japanese American community. And whereas the memorial pod, including a planter and plaques honoring Governor Carr and prisoners at Amachi, was dedicated on September 18, 1996, and funding for the memorial was provided by the Colorado Bar Association, the Japanese American community, and the general public of Colorado. Now, therefore, be resolved by the House of Representatives of the 69th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that we, the members of the 69th General Assembly, hereby recognize the 20th anniversary of Amachi's listing on the National Register of Historic Places, and honor all Coloradans who stood up against this unconstitutional act of moving and imprisoning American citizens without due process of law, and hope all Coloradans remember this important part of our history. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Governor John Hickenlooper, Lieutenant Governor Joseph Garcia, William Convery, State Historian of the History Colorado, Edward C. Nichols, President and CEO of History Colorado, J.J. Rutherford, Director of Education, History Colorado, Dr. Bonnie Clark, Professor of Anthropology, University of Denver, Ikuhiko Ono, Consul General of Japan in Denver, Minoru Tonai, President of the Amachi Historical Society in Los Angeles, James Hara, President of the Amachi Club, Jane Daniels, President of Colorado Preservation, Inc., Rob Whitwer, former state legislator, Adam Schrager, Vicky Tanawaki, President of the Friends of Amachi, John Hopper, teacher and head of the Amachi Preservation Society, Dr. Robert Fuchigami, Professor Emeritus, Amachi historian, Joe Marble, Chair of the Board of Commissioners, Prowers County, Colorado, Clayton DeForest, Mayor of Granada, Colorado, Derek Okubo, Executive Director, Human Rights and Community Partnerships, and former President of the Denver Optimist Club, the Colorado Board of Education, Judge Kerry Hada, and Colorado's congressional delegation.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam President. World War II was a horrific period of time in our country's history. We should be very thankful that our military pushed aggression of the Axis back and kept us free. Even in those times, mistakes were made, driven by emotion and corruption. The internment of loyal citizens during this time of war, even in an emotional charged period such as we experienced in World War II, cannot be construed as anything but a dark period of our history. The bravery and fighting skills of Japanese American soldiers in the European theater proves their worthiness, not only as courageous soldiers, but more importantly, loyal American citizens, and that should never be questioned. Camp Amici Memorial Annual Celebration is scheduled for May 17th of this year again, and I would encourage each of you to attend. It is a very well attended and quite an emotional experience. With that, Madam President, I call for a roll call vote, and I have some guests to introduce.
All right. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to take a moment and remember a friend who has passed away by the name of Bill Hosokawa. Bill was an incredible human being, in turn as a young man with his family, and became an editor, one of the editors of the Denver Post. I got to know him when we worked together on the Japan American Society, and then he helped me form the World Trade Center here in Denver. We did a number of seminars together talking about doing business in Japan, helping American business people understand the Japanese culture and vice versa. But one of the most unbelievable human beings I have ever known. So I would just take a moment to say thanks, Bill, for the wonderful friendship, and he just contributed so much to Colorado, and he will always be remembered.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam President. As many of you know, I'm originally from Sacramento, California, which has had a very large
Japanese and other minority population prior to World War II. And I went to school with a lot of Japanese citizens in my time back in the 1950s, 60s. But my mother was a teacher during that period of time. And a couple of years ago, before she passed away, was interviewed by Ken Burns, the historian on PBS. It was kind of interesting because the interview went on for about six and a half hours. Just to get a couple seconds of a clip. They did this for many people who had living history to tell about World War II. In her case, she had a number of Japanese students, Japanese friends who were moved from California because the concern there was a lot of uncertainty about what would happen on the west coast of the United States. And she apparently, when she was going to college, actually felt that there were some Japanese and German citizens that had been placed in our universities as spies to collect intelligence about what was going on the west coast. To my knowledge, historians have never demonstrated that any Japanese American citizen ever did that. Although there were probably some from other countries that were placed in those areas, but it was very difficult to tell what was happening at that time. I know one of my close personal friends who also passed away a few years ago, named Brian Maeda, went on to serve all the way through as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, as a veterinarian, then served for dozens of years as a veterinarian for the state of California. I also know Glenna Gilbert's a good friend of mine from Colorado Springs, who as a young girl actually lived in the, I believe it was in the Amishi camp. It may have been another camp here. But her family offered support services, so she went to school and actually in these camps, and for a number of years grew up in the camp. Made very close personal friendships with our Japanese friends that were suffering through this period of time. And yet, despite all of this, our Japanese American citizens had one of the most honorable and valor-filled records, I think, in supporting and defending our military in World War II. The famous 442nd Regimental Combat Team was the most decorated unit, all Japanese unit, the most decorated unit in World War II. And many of those soldiers came from areas of discrimination, came from the internment centers, served in Italy and France, and demonstrated beyond any standard in our military the valor that it took to defend our country, the teamwork that it took. So I thank those men and women who have given us that legacy as American citizens and the support for the country that we all love. Thank you.
Senator Crowder, you want to introduce your guests?
Thank you, Madam President. Robert Fukugami, Kampamachi survivor. James Hara, Kampamachi survivor.
Please stand so we can recognize you.
Akio Okubo, Kampamachi survivor. Derek Okubo, Kampamachi survivor. Marge Tanawaki, Camp Manzanar survivor. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Sakato, a World War II Congressional Medal of Honor and recipient, along with Leslie Sakato. Also present, please recognize Wendy Buxton, Prowers County Commissioner, Clayton DeForest, Mayor Grenada, Bill Convery, State Historian, Ed Nichols, President in History, Colorado. And again, Madam President, I would like to call for a roll call vote and also
We'll ring the chimes. Thank you for joining us. The question before us is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1017. A roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Majors, would you please poll the senators?
Aguilar, aye. Balmer, aye. Baumgartner, aye. Brophy, aye. Cadman, aye. Crowder, aye. Grantham, aye. Guzman, aye. Harvey, aye. Heath, aye. Herpin, aye. Hill excused. Hodge, aye. John, aye. Johnston, aye. Jones, aye. Kafalis, aye. Kerr, aye. King, aye. Lambert, aye. Lundberg, aye. Marble, aye. Newell, aye. Nicholson, aye. Renfro, aye. Rivera, aye. Roberts, aye. Shuffle, aye. Schwartz, aye. Stedman, aye. Talktrop, aye. Todd, aye. Ulibarri, aye. Zenzinger, aye. Madam President,
Aye.
Aye.
With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Joint Resolution 1017 is adopted. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam President. I request that current roll be added as sponsors.
Any objection? Seeing none, the present roll call will be added as co-sponsors to House Joint Resolution 1017. The Senate will stand in a brief recess so that we can greet our guests.
The Senate will come back to order. Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1295?
House Bill 1295 by Representative McCann and Senator Ulibarri concerning residential mortgage foreclosures and in connection therewith requiring a single point of contact and prohibiting dual tracking.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 1295 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1295. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble. With 30, Senator Lambert. Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Shuffle, Renfro, Grantham, Brophy. With the 27 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1295 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator King, Senator Kafalis, Madam President Pro Tem, Senators Aguilar, Nicholson, Newell, Stedman, Hodge, Todd, Mr. Majority Leader, Senators Kerr, Schwartz. Please add the President. Senator Jones. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1312?
House Bill 1312 by Representative Williams and Senator Ulibarri concerning efforts to reduce the number of foreclosures in Colorado and in connection therewith continuing the foreclosure deferment program.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 1312 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1312 on third reading. Are there any no votes? Senators Balmer, Marble, Baumgartner, Harvey, Renfro, Lundberg, Brophy, Grantham, Lambert, Shuffle. With 24 ayes, 10 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1312 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Mr. Majority Leader, Senator King, Madam President Pro Tem, Senators Aguilar, Schwartz, Nicholson, Kafalis, Newell, Kerr, Toptrop, Jones, Todd, Zenzinger, Hodge, Stedman. Please add the President. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 152?
Senate Bill 152 by Senator John and Representative Melton concerning the standardization of financial transaction requirements applicable to insurers.
Senator John.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 152 on third reading, final passage, and ask for a yes vote.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 152. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 152 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1089?
House Bill 1089 by Representative Hamner and Senator Schwartz concerning the qualification for a person to use the 10th Mountain Division license plate.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we lay over House Bill 1089 until April 21st.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. House Bill 1089 will lay over till April 21st. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 50?
Senate Bill 50 by Senator Aguilar and Representative Moreno concerning financial assistance to Colorado hospitals and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 50 on third reading and final passage.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 50. Are there any no votes? Senators Marble, Baumgartner, Harvey, Lambert, Brophy, Herpin, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Shuffle, Crowder, Lundberg, Grantham, Renfro, Rivera, Balmer. With 20 ayes, 14 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 50 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Ulibarri. Madam President Pro Tem. Senators Kafalas, Nicholson, Mr. Majority Leader, Senators Stedman, Hodge, Schwartz, Jones. Please add the President. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 64?
Senate Bill 64 by Senator Ulibarri and Representative Salazar concerning restricting the use of long-term isolated confinement for inmates with serious mental illness and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 64 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question is its adoption. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 64 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Madam President Pro Tem, Senator King, Senators Rivera, Grantham, Aguilar, Roberts, Lundberg, Herpin, Mr. Majority Leader, Senators Kerr, Toktrop, Nicholson, Kafalas, Stedman, Newell, Zenzinger, John, Jones, Schwartz, Senators Scheffel, Marble, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Hodge, Todd. Please add the President. Senator Rivera. Gotcha. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 15?
Senate Bill 15 by Senator Kerr and Representatives Young and Melton concerning the creation of a hospitality career grant program and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam President. I said President. I move Senate Bill 15 on third reading and final passage. Ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 15. Are there any no votes? Senators Marble, Baumgartner, Harvey, Lambert, Brophy, Lundberg, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Scheffel, Balmer, Jones, not Jones, Senator Renfro, Senator Crowder, Senator Balmer, got you. With 23 ayes, 11 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 15 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Schwartz, Jones, Mr. Majority Leader, Senators Ulibarri, Stedman, Nicholson, Newell, Zenzinger, Aguilar, Todd. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 11?
Senate Bill 11 by Senator Heath and Representative Holinghorse concerning the Colorado Energy Research Authority and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 11 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 11. Are there any no votes? Senators Baumgartner, Marble, Harvey, Lambert, Lundberg, Renfro, Balmer, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Scheffel, Grantham, Crowder, King, Rivera. With 21 ayes, 13 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 11 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Schwartz, Todd, Stedman, Nicholson, Newell. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 171?
Senate Bill 171 by Senators Schwartz and Jones and Representative Tyler concerning the ability of the Colorado New Energy Improvement District to arrange financing for water conservation fixtures.
Senator Jones.
Thank
Thank you, Madam President. I move Senate Bill 171 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question is the adoption of Senate Bill 171. Are there any no votes? Senators Balmer, Marble, Rivera, Baumgartner. Mr. Minority Leader. Senators Shuffle, Grantham, Renfro, Lundberg, Harvey, Lambert, Brophy, Herpin, King. With 20 ayes, 14 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 171 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Madam President Pro Tem. Senator Todd. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 46?
Senate Bill 46 by Senator Nicholson and Representative Exum concerning a grant program to increase local firefighter safety.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 46 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion? Question for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 46. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 46 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Roberts. Senators Aguilar, King, Rivera, Kafalas. Madam President Pro Tem. Senators Ulibarri, John, Mr. Majority Leader. Senators Zenzinger, Newell, Stedman, Hodge, Todd, Schwartz, Herpin, Jones, Johnston, Shuffle. Mr. Minority Leader. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 8?
Senate Bill 8 by Senator Roberts and Representative Dorr concerning the creation of the Wildfire Information and Resource Center in the Division of Fire Prevention and Control in the Department of Public Safety and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of Senate Bill 8 on third reading and final passage and ask for its adoption.
Any discussion? Senator Marble.
Thank you, Madam President. I heard this bill in committee and had some reservations about it. I did want to have a little more discussion between then and now, and I still do have some reservations because there are already websites doing this that exist within the counties, and they're doing an excellent job. I just think that adding another website and creating more of the same work where people can go to the local, and it's kind of important to them. I've talked to some people at home about it, and they say, well, if we get so many websites, we really don't know what to do, and then if some conflict, what happens? And we really rely on our local websites for fire safety and for fires that are occurring to be communicating well with the coordinating counties, and it is a local effort. And I think that as many people gave me, said, well, why doesn't more money go in for those areas to build up the websites they already have? And I think they have a point, and so I will be a no on this bill today.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, this does not supplant any kind of local websites. We heard at the Lower North Fork Wildfire Commission, though, that there was a need for a one-stop shop to get the kind of information. It'll certainly have links out to county websites, but when a wildfire is fully engaged, many of the county resources are tapped out dealing with the fires. We also heard that the State Forest Service has some information, counties have some, Cooperative Extension have others, Public Safety has another. So it actually was a call that we heard from our work on the Lower North Fork. This did pass unanimously, bipartisanly out of the Wildfire Interim Committee, and I ask for your aye vote.
The question is the adoption of Senate Bill 8. Are there any no votes? Senator Marble.
Senator Lombard. With 32 ayes, 2 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, Senate Bill 8 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Crowder, King, Rivera, Ulibarri, Madam President Pro Tem, Senators Kafalas, Nicholson, Mr. Majority Leader, Senators Harpin, Toktrop, Kerr, John, Newell, Todd, Schwartz, Jones. Please add the President. And please add Senator Lambert. General orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. There's been a request to remove House Bill 1290 from today's general order, second reading of bills consent calendar, and placed at the end of today's general order, second reading of bills calendar.
House Bill 1290 will be removed from today's second reading calendar and placed at the end of the general orders calendar for today. General order, let's see, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, in a moment, I'm going to move that we take up special orders and combine the second reading consent calendar of today and tomorrow so we can get those taken care of and lighten our workload for tomorrow. So with that, Madam President, I move that the Senate take up House Bills 1291, 1302, 1289, and 1286, along with Senate Bills 179, 154, 151, 130, 99, and 75 on special order, second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of 11:33.
The motion is that the Senate take up House Bills 1291, 1302, 1289, and 1286, along with Senate Bills 179, 154, 151, 130, 99, and 75 on special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of
11:35, if I can change that.
At the hour of 11:35. This motion requires 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted, and the Senate will take up those bills on special order, second reading consent calendar at the hour of 11:35. The Senate will stand in a brief recess to allow the special orders calendar to be prepared and distributed to members.
The Senate will come back to order. Special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, Senator Hodge. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will take up second reading of bills, special orders, consent calendar, and Senator Hodge will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles, all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
House Bill 1291 by Representatives McLaughlin and Humphrey and Senator Renfro and talk drop concerning authorizing a charter school to employ a school security officer by contract to carry a concealed handgun if the person has a valid concealed carry permit. House Bill 1302 by Representative Buckner and Senator Johnston concerning the addition of a judgment against a debtor or transferee who acts with actual intent as an available remedy for a creditor in a fraudulent transfer action. House Bill 1289 by Representative McNulty and Senator Johnston concerning the reinvestment of unused governmental monies held by a financial institution that are in excess of the amount insured by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and accounts of other financial institutions. House Bill 1286 by Representative Melton and Senator Stedman concerning authorization for the state treasurer to loan to the State Historical Society for public display items presented to the governor as a gift to the state. Senate Bill 179 by Senators Nicholson and Renfro and Representatives Foote and Sonnenberg concerning the creation of a flood debris cleanup grant account to facilitate watershed cleanup efforts in areas affected by the September 2013 flood and in connection therewith making an appropriation. Senate Bill 154 by Senator Lambert and Representative Giroux concerning funds administered by the Division of Fire Prevention and Control of the Department of Public Safety. Senate Bill 151 by Senator Talktrop and Representative Young concerning the use of monies derived from civil penalties imposed on nursing facilities to fund innovations in nursing home care and in connection therewith making an appropriation. Senate Bill 130 by Senator Talktrop and Representative Primavera concerning an increase to the personal needs allowance for persons in nursing care facilities. Senate Bill 99 by Senator Hodge and Representative May concerning a provisional physical therapist license. Senate Bill 75 by Senator Baumgartner and Representative Sonnenberg concerning the registration of motor vehicles for members of the United States Armed Forces who are deployed outside the United States.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the adoption of all the bills listed on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bills 1291, House Bill 1302, House Bill 1289, and House Bill 1286, along with Senate Bill 179 and its Local Government Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 154 and its Appropriations Committee report, Senate Bill 151 and its Finance and Appropriations Committee reports, Senate Bill 130 and its Health and Human Services and Appropriations Committee reports, Senate Bill 99 and its Health and Human Services, Finance and Appropriations Committee reports, and Senate Bill 75 and its Transportation, Finance and Appropriations Committee reports.
Question before the body is the adoption of all the bills, all the committee reports on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The committee reports are adopted. Question currently, are there any discussion? Question now before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar is adopted. Senator Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. We will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam President. We have had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
April 14, 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole takes these reports out of consideration. The following attached bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bills 179 as amended, 154 as amended, 151 as amended, 130 as amended, 99 as amended, 75 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered and gross placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bills 1291, 1302, 1289, and 1286 passed on second reading and ordered revised, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the report.
Any discussion? Question for the body is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee report is adopted. Senate Bill 179 is amended, Senate Bill 154 is amended, Senate Bill 151 is amended, Senate Bill 130 is amended, Senate Bill 99 is amended, Senate Bill 175 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1291, House Bill 1302, House Bill 1289, House Bill 1286, passed on second reading and ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Hodge. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Senator Guzman has it all by herself. We will resolve itself to a committee of the whole for purpose of considering general orders, second reading of bills calendar, and Senator Hodge will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. Court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1285? Senator Heath.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Majors.
House Bill 1285 by Representative Ryden and Senators Aguilar and Johnston concerning a requirement that a professional tax preparer provide certain disclosures to a client when preparing tax documents for the client.
Senator Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we lay over House Bill 1285 until tomorrow, April 15th.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1285 will be laid over until the 15th. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 88.
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Newell and Representative Kraftharp concerning the creation of the Suicide Prevention Commission.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 88 and the Committee on Appropriations and the Committee on Health and Human Services.
Please, to the Health and Human Services Committee report, please. Senator Newell.
Yes, thank you. I just had it in a different order. Members, in the Health and Human Services Committee, we changed some language in the bill that speaks to data-driven, evidence-based, and clinically informed. And we worked on some changes to the appointments to the commission that are, we separated out higher education and K through 12 education, also included law enforcement and a licensed mental health professional and a hospital or emergency medical facility.
Further discussion on the Health and Human Services Committee report? Seeing none, all in favor of that report, a committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We have adopted the Health and Human Services Committee report. To the Appropriations Committee report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the Committee on Appropriations Committee report that designated $73,972 for 0.9 FTE.
Further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, all in favor of the Appropriations Committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, please read L005.
Amendment L005 to Senate Bill 88.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 005, which just strikes out, actually, Madam Chair, it's I just noticed an error on this. So I'm going to have another one drafted. But it's technical, so I can wait on that. Can I do it? Okay, then, Madam Chair, I withdraw Amendment 005.
Amendment 5 has been withdrawn. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Possibly every person in this room has been touched in some way by a suicide or a suicide attempt. Colorado is in the midst of a silent yet deadly epidemic. In spite of our reputation for health and vitality, our state continues to have one of the highest suicide rates in the country. The impact of a death by suicide has a profound and devastating impact on family, friends, the workplace, faith communities, and the larger community. Yet this is a stigmatized issue that people don't want to even think about, let alone talk about. So we heard in testimony in HHS that helps rank Colorado in the top 10 states in deaths by suicide in the country consistently. But now we are the 8th highest. We have more deaths by suicide than motor vehicle accidents, twice the amount of some types of cancer. And that in Colorado, suicide is the leading cause of death for ages 10 through 34. The health crisis across urban, suburban, rural, and frontier areas of Colorado. In fact, the highest communities, the highest counties are Moffett, Montrose, Mesa, and Routt. It transcends economics, genders, ages, and yes, even political parties. This bill will create a public-private commission to advise the Office of Suicide Prevention regarding suicide prevention priorities in both policy and in funding. In 1998, Governor Romer had a commission on suicide prevention, and one of its recommendations was to create the Office of Suicide Prevention, which we did. Unfortunately, we never adequately funded it, and so it is literally about a one-person office, which has struggled to maintain the data collection, the analysis of the data. And what we need to do next is to figure out how can we engage, how can we attract the private sector and private dollars in order to help boost the services that we can get to people and prioritize the strategies that we need to put in place. We need to find out why this is occurring and what we can do about it. The other that I wanted to point out is that we are including people like representatives from a veterans organization. There is a suicide every 65 minutes of a veteran. In 2012, Colorado was 8% higher in suicide rates with veterans than the United States. Some of the reasons we think that our suicide rates are so high in Colorado is limited access to care, that rugged individualism type of persona that we have where we don't ask for help. So, members, I ask for your support in Senate Bill 88.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, suicide is a terrible problem. I completely agree with the sponsor that it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. The question is who can, and furthermore, who is? And in committee, we heard of several organizations on the private side that are doing much. So is it going to solve the problem to put a government commission together? This public-private stuff, read, public is in charge of the private side of it. I'm not convinced that this is a wise use of public dollars, because when the government gets in charge, gets involved in a process, you know, let's take medicine, for example. When the government gets involved in medicine, has that been a plus or a minus? Well, people throw up their hands in dismay over the systems that are in place in medicine. And that is a minus. When it comes to the ability to diagnose and to provide cures, that's a plus. But that's not the government, that's the private side. That's doctors and hospitals and universities digging into this, the needs that are out there and figuring out the solutions. But when the government gets involved, what we end up with is a greater bureaucracy, and in the case of medicine, we end up with a billing system that's completely bizarre and beyond belief and doesn't work at all. And then some would say, well, let's put more government involved. Apparently that will be the solution. Well, no, I don't believe so. And suicide is too serious an issue to be playing around with bureaucracy. As I say, in committee there were many organizations that were really getting down to brass tacks with the issues. But I'm not convinced that it is efficient or effective. And finally, I don't believe it's the government's business. Unless, of course, the government is in charge of everybody's life at all times, and then it is certainly the government's business. So this bill, even though it's not a terribly significant one in the whole course of the hundreds of bills we consider this year, the subject is serious, but the commission itself is not going to have that much effect. However, it's going to move us more down that path of, well, I guess the government's got to figure out a solution. It's not going to come. You're kidding yourself. You're spending the taxpayer dollars on efforts and issues that are not going to find solutions, but they are certainly going to come up with the ability to spend a whole lot more money down the road. If we want to have a serious discussion about suicide, let's take it out of this building and let's put it in the hands of mental health professionals, of the clergy, of the schools. But to create a commission and think that we're going to somehow coordinate all of the great efforts that occur today into a more effective mechanism is, I believe, mistaken, and therefore I was a no in committee and I'll be a no on the floor.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I think all of us have been affected by suicide in some way, a friend, a family member, somebody we know. That's how I came to this issue. A friend of mine, when he turned 19 at CSU, killed himself. And I couldn't let that go a few years ago when a bill idea was presented to me about people showing up at emergency rooms, about getting the information they need to find treatment and what to look out for their family members particularly, so that they would be more safe. And then more recently, a friend of mine who actually got me interested in wildland firefighting, who I used to work with, about 8 years ago, he killed himself. And then more recently than that, another firefighter I know. And I don't think this is going to solve every problem, but I think it's going to prevent some suicides. I absolutely do. And the reason is this commission will get together and bring in subject matter experts from the public and the private sector and figure out what the most effective things we can do with the limited resources we have. To me, that's a smart solution. And for me, when I vote on this bill, I vote for those people, and I'm sure you probably know them too, and I would just ask a yes vote to do that.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, health and safety is a fundamental principle of government. Mason County has the highest suicide rate in the state. And until somebody can tell me why our citizens are killing themselves, I welcome commissions. I welcome insight from both the private and the public sector. And I welcome this piece of legislation will be a yes vote.
Senator Schwartz.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And I, too, rise in support that I think many of our rural counties and communities have disproportionately suffered as a result of suicide. And that includes Delta County, Pickens County. So many of our communities really struggle with this impact. So I'm going to be asking for an amendment that actually does evaluate where our resources are going when it comes to suicide prevention, because we have limited scarce dollars, but we have to make sure those folks that are on the ground with crisis centers, handling telephone calls, being with those individuals to prevent that next suicide is where we need to make sure those resources in fact exist. So with that, I will then, I'm just preparing an amendment right now for the bill sponsor.
Senator Marble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No one can explain the reason behind suicides except the people who commit suicide. I know that to be very true. When I was a young girl, one of my playmates, since I remember going outside and playing, he was older than I, and kind of like little kids do, they count the big guys in the neighborhood as their heroes. He committed suicide. Nobody knew why. Since then, there's been many suicides. When my son was deployed to Iraq, one of his best friends committed suicide here. They had been dealing with it with mental health professionals for many, many years. When my oldest son was in high school, his best friend committed suicide. He was at our home. He asked to move in with us that day. Didn't seem as though much was going on, he just wanted to move in with us. He'd gotten a ticket, and he was going to get his license revoked. And he just couldn't think of staying, out away from town without a lot of communication with his friends. He felt 3 months would be too long. Can we move in? I said, sure, ask your parents if it's okay. He went home and committed suicide. We had no idea. It seemed as though for every time suicide happens, it's a different reason. A few years later, one of my best friends, former investigator for Fort Collins PD, she lived with me when she was having hard times. We were very close. She came to my house, wanted to borrow something, and I said, yeah, sure. She goes, I'll bring it back in better shape than when I got it. And I said, you bet. At 10 minutes to 8 in the morning, she texted my son and said, boy, your mom is sure going to be upset with me. And a minute later, she shot herself. Nobody would have thought that she would have gone to those measures, but she did. I don't think a commission will stop suicide. Awareness, we all know, helps. Education. We're all very aware that those returning from the military are committing suicide at numbers that we have never seen before in our lives. I think one of the greatest fears of one who commits suicide is that, one, they will never be forgiven for something that they cannot forgive themselves for. They feel a burden and they feel a need for escape from demons that have been created, sometimes in the workplace. Military has a lot of that. And so did my police officer friends who had probably investigated and broke some of the biggest cases in Fort Collins. I think that creating a commission is getting off on the wrong track. And I really believe And I really know that if somebody wants to commit suicide, they will. And that's the harsh reality of what's come upon us. Even my son's friend, who was under medical supervision for years and years and years and been on different medications, shy, very cute guy, neat personality, smart. You'd never wonder about the demons that he fought every day, and no medication seemed to help. And the way that happened, and the day it happened, nobody in his family had any idea. It was another day in the life of this young man. All he did was walk out in the garage and say, "I'll be right back." Just like, "Hey, can we come and live with you? Can I borrow something? I'll bring it back in better shape." Everything seems fine, and that's just it. When a person tries to commit suicide or has decided to commit suicide, we have noticed a great deal of burden, a shift of burden off their shoulders, and all of a sudden they all seem to go through a happier stage than they've been in. Oh, it seems like they're doing great. The reason they're doing great is because they've decided they're going to put an end to their misery, and they're good with that. And that's all the resolve that we have as family, and many people who have as friends, to deal with those in our lives who meant so much, who have committed suicide. We miss them. We have their memories. And at times we understand their torment because we've shared so many of their stories. And they have become such a close part of our lives. But a commission is not going to stop that. I think there is a pattern with suicide. But I want to be able to have a closer relationship with why and a better awareness of when that personality shift comes, that you as a person, as their friend, are on high alert. Because it happens all the time. Sometimes when they say, as my niece, when she lost one of her friends, they went to a party together that night. And he decided he was going to go home early. So he went to my niece and said goodbye. And she goes, "Oh yeah, I'll see you. I'll see you later." And he looked at her again and he goes, "No, really, goodbye. I just want you to know I love you." And she goes, "Oh, that's good." And he asphyxiated himself in his garage that night. There are warning signs, but a commission isn't going to be able to tell you that. Living through so many of these incidents makes you very and more keenly aware, and I think people can help in communities, through churches and through healthcare professionals, and get it more home-based. Believe me, I understand we've all lost people to suicide, but another commission just doesn't seem to me to be the home-based answer to give us what we need. I think the better thing, to keep it very local, to keep it within the house, to keep it within the community, within the church and the healthcare professionals, and be able to give better ideas. I know we have readings in Fort Collins where we had remembrances of those who committed suicide and the people who were there, and looking at the families, looking at them and reading off the names of those good friends that we had and family members. bringing them together like that does help, and it gives us an awareness, and we talk. Believe me, we talk in depth. And I'm just not sure Commission will. I want to reiterate one more time that no one can explain the reason behind a suicide except those who commit it. But we can better understand. I also know we are not going to be able to stop many of them, because when they make up their mind, they find those ways. So it's not that I am against trying to find ways to deal with suicide. It's just that I do not believe that a commission is the right reason in this instance, and that's why I would vote no on this. I just want to keep it more local, and that awareness more connected, I guess, with the friends and the people that we see. I want to keep that, not think that a state commission is doing the job that we ourselves inside need to do every day. So thank you so much.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, please read L006.
Amendment L006 is Senate Bill 88.
Senator Schwartz.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and I move L006. And this is the amendment that I was discussing about evaluating the distribution of state resources for suicide prevention. As we know, so often it's our first responders, it's our friends, it's our neighbors, and we do have wonderful work being done within our communities with these crisis centers. And we need to make sure the funding is there for what efforts we feel can make a difference. And with this, it's simply asking for the commission to take time to look at state resources and see if they are in fact being allocated to the most effective uses. So with that, I ask for an aye vote on Amendment 6.
Further discussion of L006. Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a friendly amendment, and we've already talked about in the community, we've already talked about having a funding subcommittee to talk about this very issue, knowing that we have so few resources. How can we help make recommendations for those resources? So I also ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on L006. Seeing none, the question is its adoption. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. L006 is adopted. There is another amendment. Mr. Majors, please read L005.
Amendment L005, Senate Bill 88.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment 5, which just strikes in the Department of Human Services, and that is in regard to the Behavioral Health Transformation Council, and it was an error in the original bill, and we're just correcting that. It's a technical amendment, and I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on L005. Seeing none, all in favor of L005, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. L005 is adopted. Senator Herpin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In early January 2009, a young airman serving his country, working in the squadron next to mine at Schriever Air Force Base, committed suicide. Coincidentally, on January 5th, 2009, our second granddaughter was born, and they named her Hope. So maybe a commission may not prevent suicides. We often refer to suicide as a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But raising the awareness of suicide certainly can go a long way into at least helping provide some resources, some education, some intervention that maybe this number one cause of deaths in Colorado could be prevented. So therefore, I'll be supporting it. While a commission, we often look at things as legislators. Well, let's form a commission, let's form a study group, let's form a committee. And we think that sometimes that's not a good thing. In this case, I think it is a good thing to get professionals in the public and private arena together to discuss this most serious problem. To me, seems like a good thing. It certainly cannot be a bad thing, and I think we should give it a chance. So, thank you.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And colleagues, I rise in support of Senate Bill 88 because I think this is something that it is worth spending a little time looking at and thinking about and seeing what we can do to bring, a dark, terrible tragedy out of the closet. The risk of suicide doesn't occur equally across all demographic groups. And if you study this issue a little bit, you'll see that there are certain people, certain categories of folks more at risk, more likely to attempt suicide or actually succeed. And amongst all those groups, I have a particular concern for young people. It's really, what is more tragic than to see a young teenager take their own life because they don't think they have the support or the capacity to carry on and to succeed in our modern society when it's so complex. And when you look at the statistics around youth suicide, you will see there is a strong predilection amongst young people who are lesbian or gay or bisexual, transgendered, or struggling with issues of human sexuality to attempt and often complete the act of suicide. And you have to wonder, what is it that these particular young people are feeling when they feel rejected, when they experience bullying and condemnation and disapproval, perhaps even at home or at school or in their communities, that makes them think that suicide is a better alternative than living their life fully and freely as who they are. Unfortunately, that's a reality for a lot of young people in our state and across the country. It's something that has come to light, and there are some startling statistics about, but it's something I think a commission like this could do more to help us understand what are those pressures that young people experience. What is that sense of hopelessness? Why are there no resources? What would be effective in intervening in those suicidal thoughts of people who, for some reason, are told they don't fit in and are struggling to find a place where maybe they do? For these reasons, I'm supportive of Senate Bill 88 and thank the sponsor for bringing the bill, and look forward to the work of the Commission and recommendations back to the General Assembly about what we might do to help create a more positive state of Colorado where people don't feel that ending it is the only solution. So thank you, Senator Newell.
Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's necessary to come down for a second time to speak. I'm the first one who spoke in opposition to this bill, and I believe it's important to stay focused on how come. What's the wrong? What's the reason to vote against this legislation? Because I agree, suicide is a terrible problem. Have you ever considered it yourself? Have you ever wrestled with a family member who is, or a friend? Or have you ever gotten that tragic, terrible news that somebody did take their own life? I suspect each one of us can think back on one or multiple occasions where that was the case. Suicide is a terrible tragedy, always. There's no disagreement there. The question I have is it the best way to form a government commission to be dealing with this? You know, we didn't come up with this isn't the first time it's come up as far as we need to study this and we need to find some solutions and some cures. As a matter of fact, there are many organizations that work diligently on this. My question is whether or not the government can do a good job or gets in the way. And when I look at other issues of great significant value or concern to the people of Colorado, where do those solutions come from? Do they come from another government commission? Do they come from some legislation that says we've got to fix it? When it comes to issues like this, I'm not convinced. So I don't vote no because of a cavalier attitude towards suicide. No, I take it so seriously that I want to see solutions. And I don't believe that the government is the all-knowing, controlling power that does that. Here's what the government brings to the table. The police powers, the power of taxation, the power to spend a lot of money. And sometimes there are resources necessary, but I want those private concerns to be on the forefront. And when we put a commission together by bill, we create a government bureaucracy. And unfortunately, far too often, solutions that are being found on the private side think, well, if we could just get some government funding, we could really get some traction here. And what happens, by my observation, is the exact opposite. Process replaces production. And coordination and bureaucracy grows when what you really need is somebody on the other end of that phone to be talking with that person. Or maybe it's your neighbor, or maybe it's a work colleague. I don't see that coming out of the programs that, again, I'll go back to my example of medicine. Have we cured it by getting more and more and more and more involved in the medical decisions of the citizens of Colorado? Some would say yes, and we need more of that. I say no. We need less of that. We need to let the citizens in this great state find the freedom and autonomy they need to prosper, and that's the same with so many nonprofit organizations and other efforts to deal with the issue of suicide. I think this bill feels good, but I don't see solutions coming out of it, and I'm not willing to put my name of endorsement on this direction.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind members, if you don't remember, I think it was 3 years ago, the Colorado Youth Advisory Council did a statewide survey of youth across Colorado to identify their number one concern. I mean, they were allowed to name out whatever they wanted to, but from across the state, the number one concern was teen suicide. And this was coming from kids not prompted. They could have picked anything. They could have picked driver's license issues. They could have picked PE classes. They could have picked whatever. But the number one thing these kids across the state picked was teen suicide. So much so that the next year we carried a resolution that came through here. But what the youth were adamant about was they didn't just want a resolution. They didn't just want to name it and then walk away from it. They wanted some action steps. And to that end, they worked with the State Board of Education to talk about teacher education component on recognizing the signs for teen that might be contemplating suicide, and that was worked into some professional education component. I bring that up because I think that's one very vulnerable population. The second reason I support this bill is the calling out of the veterans. Certainly in rural, remote areas, we actually have a number of veterans who move into the southwest Colorado, and we are always trying to figure out how to provide support services, particularly as they transition into civilian life. Suicide, every veteran we lose to suicide all of them are tragedies, but if it is because we have failed to provide the support system under those veterans, all the more shame on us. So while I don't think this is going to prevent suicide to everyone who's contemplating it, what I see when I read the bill is a group coming from across the state. It is given the stamp of the state legislature that this is truly a number one issue that we need to address. What they will do is put together recommendations that they bring back to us. I don't see it as government involvement so much as a statewide a collaborative effort to identify what's going on and what steps might we take at whatever level, local or state. So I will be supporting the bill. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be a supporter on this. I think what we have is an epidemic. This is not normal everyday suicide. We are an epidemic. So I do believe that, you know, I've heard talk that how government cannot fix a situation, but I will tell you the very true possibility is government could be part of the problem on this, that could be causing some of this. So if we can get a commission together, and that's why we form a commission, to try and make it better. So I think we ought to give it a try, and I'll be supportive of this. So thank you.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to clarify just a couple of things that were mentioned from other members, and what this body will do, or not this body, what this commission will do is create subcommittees that are down. It's more of a bottoms-up approach with a public-private commission. We've attracted private sector folks who are willing to help us come to the table to attract private dollars to engage the private sector. We have Larissa Herder, who is the chairman of Time Warner Telecom, chairwoman of Time Warner Telecom. We've had Ted Harms, who's the executive director of the Anschutz Foundation. We've got supporters from across the state, Arapahoe Douglas, Douglas County Sheriff's Office with the youth education. We have the Pikes Peak Suicide Prevention Partner, the Pueblo Suicide Prevention Center. So these are people from across the state who want to do this, who want to be part of the solution. And it is what we are doing currently is not working well enough. We've made inch, but we need to make a mile to make sure that those suicide rates go down, not up. But each year we are seeing them go up. We have had the highest suicide rate in 2012, which is the latest data that we have. It is the highest we've ever had in this state. So from that earlier commission that I mentioned, one of the recommendations was to create the office. We created that office. We made one of those recommendations. We've made some progress, but now it is the evolution for the next step. And so I ask for your support, not in knowing that this will prevent every suicide, but what I can tell you as a mother of someone who has been suicidal before, but with services, she is a thriving, beautiful, young, talented woman today, with a former husband who is suicidal, with a cousin who committed suicide. I can tell you this is a real issue, not only personally, but statewide. We are dealing with a public health crisis, and it would be unconscionable for us not to take action. And I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on Senate Bill 88. Seeing none, the question is the adoption. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Senate Bill 88 has been adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 1?
Senate Bill 1 by Senators John and Kerr and Representatives Garcia and McLaughlin concerning making college education more affordable by imposing further restrictions on tuition increases, increasing financial aid, and increasing operating support for each governing board of a state-supported institution of higher education by 11%, and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 1, the Appropriations Committee report, and the Education Committee report.
To the Education Committee report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did some good amendments in the Education Committee. We extended the tuition cap at 6% from 1 year to 2 years, and we also adjusted the performance contracting funds, putting more money directly to students through COF. I ask for an aye vote.
Any discussion on the Education Committee report? Seeing none, the question is its adoption. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The Education Committee report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in the Appropriations Committee, we actually appropriated the approximately $100 million that will go in this historic reinvestment to our higher education system. And we also increase the Colorado Opportunity Fund, the money that goes directly to students, by $270 a credit hour. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, all in favor of its adoption, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We have adopted the Appropriations Committee report. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Majors, please read L011.
I'm in L011 to Senate Bill 1.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We move L011.
Please explain.
Thank you. This is a technical amendment and we're actually taking out some periods and adding some language. Actually, we are putting some capital letters in that should have been capitalized that were not, so pretty much just a technical amendment. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on Amendment 11. Seeing none, all in favor of its adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We have adopted L011. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 1, the College Affordability Act, is a great bill. And first of all, I want to thank everyone who was part of its process. Here we are late in April, and this is Senate Bill 1, and we're just now getting it onto the, sending it over to the other chamber where hopefully they don't mess it up too much. But I specifically want to thank all of the Education Committee members, both sides of the aisle, who worked on this, brought forth amendments, and we worked on this in a great bipartisan way to make the bill better. We do have a problem here in Colorado. Our access to affordable higher education is out of reach for many Coloradans. The majority of our universities and colleges have raised in-state tuition by 5 to 15% just in the last few years. And in fact, since 2008-2009, in-state tuition has increased by a minimum of 22%. And in some cases, over 68%. So the College Affordability Act will allocate an additional $101 million to Colorado colleges, and it also puts a 6% cap on yearly tuition rate increases for resident undergraduate students. With the economic recession, the state has not funded higher education as it should. Tuition has gone up, pricing many students out and burdening our future with mountains of debt. The College Affordability Act is a game changer. With this legislation, we will finally turn a corner and stop seeing tuition skyrocket. With that, I ask for your aye vote on Senate Bill 1.
Senator John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the only thing that I'll add, I think that's the good friend Senator from Lakewood did a great job. But the only thing that I will add is that as I was and have been in the community and at the town halls and talking to people, the one thing that comes up every single time seems to be, can you just make it affordable so I can send my kids to college? What we know is that so many times they'll go through 1 semester, 2 semester, and then they have to take off because they can't afford it, and they have to work for the next 1 semester or 2 semesters. So they're taking incredibly long amounts of time to be able to complete a degree, and that's if they go back after taking off 1 semester or 2 semesters. So we lose those kids because they just can't keep up with that yo-yo. So if there's one way that we can really do and help to create an economic engine in Colorado, it is to make sure that everyone can afford a higher institution degree. And that's why capping it at 6% will be really helpful. And we've had so many families come and tell us that. So with that, I would ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 1.
Senator Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I also rise in support I think it's such an important bill that we make sure that our young people are not burdened with a mountain of debt when they come out of school. And not only are we, having spent time as both the Commissioner of Higher Education and on the Board of Regents, knowing what the challenges are for institutions to make ends meet. What we don't want to do is have institutions then raise their fees to help cover their costs. I think we made some good inroads this year, helping with capital needs on our schools, for our schools, of both maintenance as well as buildings, and wanting to make sure that that too can affect the bottom line for our students. So let's keep the tuition down. Let's also keep those fees down and support our institutions to be able to manage their costs in other ways.
Further discussion on Senate Bill 1. Senator Shuffle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I rise in support of Senate Bill 1. Heard it in committee, and with the amendments that were added there, was able to support it. Senate Bill 1 represents so many of the pressures that we feel in the funding of higher education. With the downturn and the lack of funding over the last several years, there was a desire to restore some of that to the extent that we were able to, and Senate Bill 1 does that. We also feel the pressure, and we've heard from our constituencies, and I appreciate the sensitivity that is contained in the bill regarding the tuition issue and the 2-year cap. Arguably, it's not enough, and there was discussion about limiting tuition increases to inflation or even a freeze, but this is a step in the right direction with the 2-year limitation that's put on it, particularly since the institutions themselves participated in this process and were in favor of the cap. It also contains the transfer of as much as was possible under the circumstances to the College Opportunity Fund, which again I believe favors students. With this bill, however, though, we do need to tread lightly because we do enter the realm of interfering, arguably, with the funding and the modeling of higher education. And this is where the discussion, there was a good discussion with the folks in higher ed about, with the cap, we're really entering a realm of their business and the fact that they budget and work on these things, and to some extent they really would rather we stay out of this notion of a cap. But it was a good compromise that took place and a good agreement that was able to be put together, and will definitely foster good future discussions on the same topic. So appreciate the good work on this and ask for an aye vote.
Senator Senenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with my colleague from Douglas County. We had a very vigorous debate in Education Committee. And being from the higher education community, sitting down and recruiting students, working with them on their schedules, time and time again, we have students that are all ready to go, want to go to college, have the ability to go to college, and then at the very last moment decide that they just cannot afford it. And I have worked with many of those students. It was extremely disappointing because I worked with future teachers, and I knew that the students that I was in contact with, that I was counseling, would have been amazing teachers, and it was unfortunate that they had to walk away from a 4-year degree and try and find a way or a path forward some other way. So I believe that we have an obligation to try and make higher education affordable. There was a study that came out recently that talked about the future of jobs and the amount of education that is going to be needed for those jobs up until 2020, and the numbers were staggering. It was like 80 to 85% of all future jobs are going to require some sort of post-secondary education. So I feel that this is not only critical for our future, but it's also critical for our economy. So I rise in support.
Further discussion of Senate Bill 1. Seeing none, the question is its adoption. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Senate Bill 1 has been adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we lay over the balance of general order second reading of bills until tomorrow, April 15th.
The question before the body is laying over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The calendar will be laid over. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam President. We've had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
April 14, 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole brings the reports out of consideration of the following text bills being second reading thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 88 is amended, Senate Bill 1 is amended, passed on second reading in order to go place on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1285, Senate Bills 168, 173, House Bill 1123, House Bill 1345, and House Bill 1290 laid over until April 15, 2014, retaking their place on the calendar.
Senator Hodge.
I move the report. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam
Any
President.
discussion? Question for us is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 88 is amended. Senate Bill 1 is amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1285, Senate Bill 168, Senate Bill 173, House Bill 1123, House Bill 1345, House Bill 1290 laid over until April 15th and retaining their place on the calendar. Mr. Majority Leader.
Or you can just take the other one. Just proceed out of order.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move we proceed out of order for consideration of conference committee reports.
For the motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We'll proceed out of order for consideration of conference committee reports. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1336?
House Bill 1336 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning the provision and payment of the expenses of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2014, except as otherwise noted.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of the first report of the first conference committee on House Bill 1336.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Colleagues, this is the long bill, our state budget for fiscal year 14-15, and the Joint Budget Committee did meet as a conference committee to iron out the differences between the House and the Senate. There was quite a bit of moving parts, and I can go into a lot of detail, but just to hit the highlights, I would let you know that the Senate amendment for the funding of the aerial firefighting fleet was altered just a little bit to reduce the fiscal impact just down to a shade under $20 million and to change the funding source so that CBMS remains funded. We also retained the Senate amendment on TANF employment support programs, so the Larimer County delegation should relish in that news. There are a number of beyond the scope issues that were added in conference committee, technical adjustments, some footnotes, and notably a provision for payment of all of the settled claims arising out of the Lower North Fork fire, as well as a new line item for pending claims, so that should those claims settle after the legislature has adjourned for the year, we will have acted by bill to provide appropriation and spending authority for the controller to make good on any settlement payments that are owed after the claims board process. A lot more I could say about it, but I'm hungry for lunch, and I imagine you are too, so I'll just ask for an aye vote. Be happy to take any questions.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam President, and I won't spend too much more time than the previous speaker did on this, but we've been working for quite a while together. The most important thing about this is that we fixed a lot of the problems that got to us here that came from the House. So, I appreciate some of my colleagues may not vote for this budget, and I think some were very articulate that this does empower some bad things to happen. It also empowers some good things to happen. In balance, I think we have to look at all of the bills going through. We're obviously not able to fix everything in the budget, either, no matter what perspective you take on how we approach budgeting or how we approach the whole role of government. But what we do is to have to put everything that's a number one priority into a different priority. because the tendency is to say everything is a number one priority. In budgeting, you can't do that. We have a certain limit for different departments. We've increased Department of Education by quite a bit through the, well, we will be through the Student Success Act and the state, well, the whole state ed fund has been increased, or over the years we're spending that prudently. The School Finance Act will be going through. We just increased higher education, or will be, by $100 million. I think it's very important that since the recession began and we gobbled up a lot of our cash funds and reserves, we've taken positive action to restore that to a much more fiscally viable and conservative position, going from 5% statutory reserve to 6.5% in 1 year, which I think is very significant. And as the previous speaker said, for the first time in Colorado history, we are funding an aerial firefighting capability for the state. And after the last couple of years, I think we've learned some lessons in that area, that prompt action quite often pays dividends in the long run. So I would ask for an aye vote for the conference committee, first conference committee report.
Any discussion on the conference committee, on the adoption of the conference committee report? Seeing none, the question is the adoption of the conference committee on House Bill 1336. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the conference committee for House Bill 1336 is adopted. Senator Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the repassage of House Bill 1336 as amended by the conference committee report.
Senator Lambert.
I would also ask for an aye vote.
Question is the readoption of House Bill 1336. Are there any no votes? Senator Balmer, Senator Lundberg, Senator Brophy, Senator Renfro, Senator Baumgartner, Senator Marble, Senator Rivera, Senator Grantham, Senator Harvey. With 25 ayes, 9 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1336 is readopted. Additional co-sponsors. Senator Ulibarri. Mr. Majority Leader.
I'll do it.
Senator Stebbins.
May we have a senatorial 5, Madam President? Thank you.
Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come back to order. Senator Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam President. Having voted on the prevailing side on House Bill 1336, I move for immediate reconsideration.
Reconsideration of repassage or also of the conference committee report?
Repassage of the last action on 1336.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed no. Ayes have it. The Senate will reconsider repassage of 1336. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1336?
House Bill 1336 by Representative Duran and Senator Stebbins concerning the provision of payment of the expenses of the executive, legislative, and judicial departments of the state of Colorado and of its agencies and institutions for and during the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2014, except as otherwise noted.
Senator Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the readoption of House Bill 1336 as amended by the conference committee report.
Senator Lambert.
Ditto.
The question is the readoption of House Bill 1336. Are there any no votes? Senators Renfro, Grantham, Marble, Lundberg, Brophy, Balmer, Harvey, Baumgartner. With 26 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1336 is readopted. Additional co-sponsors. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1342?
House Bill 1342 by Representative Duran and Senator Stebbins concerning transfers of monies related to capital construction.
Senator Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the adoption of the first report of the First Conference Committee on House Bill 1342.
Thank you. Please proceed.
The Conference Committee on 1342 met and made some adjustments to the bill, but to make a long story short, every project that was on the list when the bill left the Senate is still on the list. Fort Lewis stays with $10 million cash appropriated through the long bill and stays on the waiting list for the remaining $10 million and change of that project. The Quigley Hall renovation at Western State University had, prior to the conference committee, had $5 million in the long bill, and then they were on the waiting list for the remaining $20 million of their project. That project was changed so that all $25 million of it is on the waiting list, and the $5 million that they had in the long bill was reallocated elsewhere during the long bill conference committee report. There were some adjustments to the general fund and state education fund allocations that are part of that cascade of future money, and the dollar figures were adjusted accordingly, and that is the conference report. I ask for its adoption.
Any discussion on the conference committee report? Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam President. And as you know, even during the long bill discussion, there were a lot of moving parts here. I think the Senate made it clear that they wanted to, or that you all wanted to put more future money into this bill. And, I think hopefully that will all work out. I don't know what that future money might be. It's not necessarily maybe the first priority of the Budget Committee members to take a lot of money from next year's budget and use it this year. But I think that was respected in this conference committee. And I would also, I think with all the things going on, I think it's a fair report.
Any further discussion? Question is the adoption of the conference committee report to House Bill 1342. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, the conference committee report is adopted. Senator Steadman.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the readoption of House Bill 1342 as amended by the conference committee report.
Further discussion? Question is the readoption of House Bill 1342. Are there any no votes? With Senator Balmer as a no. Any other no votes? With 33 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, House Bill 1342 is readopted. Additional co-sponsors. Mr. Majority Leader.
So, where are we? Thank you, Madam President. In view of the hour, I move we lay over the balance of the calendar until Tuesday, April 15th.
For the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We will lay over the balance of the calendar until Tuesday, April 15th. Members, there's a few things we have to read across, some announcements that are relevant to you coming up on scheduling this week, so sit tight, and message from the House.
April 14, 2014, Madam President, the House has adopted and returns to Senate Joint Resolution 27 as amended. The House has passed on third reading and transferred the advisory statutes House Bills 1333, 1349, 1269 as amended, 1279 as amended, 1317 as amended, 1036 as amended, 1118 as amended, 1144 as amended, 1162 as amended, 1202 as amended, 1344 as amended, 1322 as amended, 1175 as amended, 1205 as amended, 1294 as amended, 1323 as amended, 1301 is amended, 1214 is amended, 1296 is amended. The House has passed on third reading and returns herewith Senate Bills 163 and 160.
Introduction of resolutions. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 28?
Senate Joint Resolution 28 by Senator Curd and Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Giroux concerning celebration of Day Without Hate 2014.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you. I move we lay over Senate Joint Resolution 28 until Friday, April 25th.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate Joint Resolution 28 will lay over until April 25th. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 193 by Senators Carroll and Lundberg and Representative Singer concerning conforming Colorado law and location information with the Fourth Amendment as interpreted by the United States Supreme Court, United States v. Jones.
Judiciary.
Senate Bill 194 by Senator Stedman and Representatives May and Giroux concerning the issuance of identification documents by the Department of Revenue.
Appropriations.
Senate Bill 195 by Senators Nicholson and Renfro and Representatives Singer and Sonnenberg concerning a study of Pareto-type growth along the South Platte River in the aftermath of the September 2013 flood.
Local government.
House Bill 1292 by Representatives Hamner and Murray and Senator Johnson concerning monies allocated to the state elementary and secondary public school system and in connection therewith requiring increased reporting of the use of public monies by public schools, increasing the funding for public school capital construction, increasing the funding for the Colorado READ Act, and making an appropriation.
Education.
House Bill 1298 by Representatives Hamner and Buckner and Senators Kerr and Stedman concerning the financing of public schools and in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Education. The following change in bill sponsorship will occur. Senator Johnston will be added as a joint prime sponsor with Senator Heath and Representatives McLaughlin and Pabon on Senate Bill 174. Announcements.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me try to give you a little overview of the rest of the week, members. Today, we're going to proceed as scheduled, but committees have been moved back from 1:30 to 2 in view of the time that we're adjourning here this morning. Ag is meeting immediately following this on adjournment in the Senate Committee Room 353 for action only on a bill that was laid over. In terms of the rest of the week, tomorrow, we're going to have a long day, as you can see. There are a lot of bills already on, and we laid over the balance of today's second reading calendar tomorrow, so that means like some 18 or 19 bills on second reading tomorrow. So we will have committees tomorrow at 1:30 as usual, excuse me, not as usual, not at 2, 1:30. So we're moving committees up a half an hour at 1:30, and we're going to come back at 4 o'clock. So I think we can be prepared to be here for quite a while tomorrow afternoon and into the evening. Wednesday and Thursday, again, we are going to move as scheduled tomorrow on Wednesday, and we're going to come back at 5 and work into the evening. Thursday, the current plan is to come back at 1:30 following lunch to continue doing seconds, and committees will then meet at roughly 4:30, a Thursday afternoon. And as you know, all of this is being done because we made the decision to have off on Good Friday this Friday, which we will continue to keep that promise. But what it does is compresses everything that we're doing this week. I also want to make sure everyone is aware House Bill 1288 was previously scheduled to be heard in State Veterans and Military Affairs today, and just to remind those committee members that that will be moved until Wednesday, April 16th. So, Madam President, I think that gets through all of our announcements. I hope everyone is aware of what the plans are. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
We can adjourn.
With that, Madam President, I move that the Senate adjourn until 9 a.m. Tuesday, April 15th.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will adjourn until 9 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, April 15th.